Welcome to the Conscious Radio Network's YouTube channel. Become enlightened, have fun, and tell all your friends and family to share with everyone they know. You can find us on Facebook and stay up to date on our Facebook group, or find us on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Our podcasts can be found on Libsyn, iHeart, Spotify, Google Podcast, and more. Most of all, remember to go to our official website at consciousradionetwork.com for podcasts, hosts, future shows, and scheduling. We also want to welcome our international audience. Don't stop now. Enjoy the community. Subscribe today.
This is the Conscious Radio Network.
Good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you might be on this spaceship we call Earth. Welcome to Conscious Radio Network's weekly podcast series, The Seance. I'm your host, Reverend Dr. Paul Meckes. If this is your first time tuning in, please click subscribe, like, share, comment, and also don't forget to listen to wherever you listen to your podcasts. Today, subconscious healing. With postgraduate degrees in mental health and leadership and certifications as a certified subconscious practitioner, restorative in yin yoga and intuitive life coaching, her passion and dedication focusing on helping women remove blocks. She has been a driving force in helping individuals and groups change and create more happiness and freedom. She's a passionate guide who helps people find their authentic voice and inner soul's desires. She assists her clients in curating their best mindfulness practices, enabling powerful intuition, insights, and subconscious healing for long-standing emotional memories and patterns. Let's welcome to the show for the first time, Denise Miceli. Welcome, Denise. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
You are very
honored
welcome.
to be here.
Very welcome. So this is I tell you, I get as many guests into, talking about consciousness, subconsciousness, mind, body, spirit. And it seems like you have all of that in one basket today.
Well, I will say that what I've learned about the subconscious mind and the power of it has really rocked my world, which is part of why I transform my coaching into Rock Your Blocks, because it is way more powerful than conscious work. When I first came across it, I actually did it for myself. And within 4 weeks, I felt so much space within me to actually move forward with things in my life that maybe just felt like, oh, I don't know if I should do that, or, just those doubts, the confusion, the indecision. And I said, oh, you know what? We're going into a time of transformational change, and people need something deeper that is not, all this conscious pushing and talking about all of the problems. To me, just energetically gives more power to the problems that you want to solve. And you end up just, I say this, we talk to each other as women, whether it's family, friends, or whatever, and we just give more and more energy to what we don't want. Yeah. And I wanted to take my coaching in a different direction. And so after, like I said, experiencing the power of it, in just 4 weeks, I began the certification, and off I went.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, for our audience, what is the difference between the conscious and the subconscious?
So the subconscious mind, I'll start there, because it really operates way more than we think. I think there's a lot of people throwing that term out around there and in the universe. And so it is important to understand, like, your subconscious mind is like an iCloud of all of your memories, all of your experiences, and most importantly, your emotions around those things. And we'll carry that with us from our entire lifespan. And what I often find, especially working with women, but with anyone, is that we have these inner parts of us that were developed a long time ago out of needs we had as children, maybe teen years, maybe even 20s. the time when our life is still kind of like, okay, who are we? What are we going to do? And all of that. But when we're children and we need that love and approval, we often take on a persona. A part of us becomes activated because we want to be seen, heard, and loved. We don't understand at that age that you should be okay no matter what. You're worthy no matter what. No one's really telling us that. So
Yeah.
if we hear, for example, our parents or others that are adults saying something about us, we might hear that and think, that feels weird. I don't know. But then we do something to support that belief, that thought, that description of who we are. Like, oh, Denise is just smart. She doesn't even have to study. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
Are you kidding? Like nobody is paying attention. And so we hear these things, and then we sort of become that, and we try to, help and make sure everybody's okay if we became the rescuer. So a lot of times we do archetype work, we look at those things. And the other word for it is saboteur, right? So,
Mm.
let's say that we had parents or other influential people, teachers or whatever, who were very judgmental. That becomes your own saboteur, your own inner critic.
Yeah.
Well, you get to, and many of us have experienced this in even in adult life. We have these great ideas about what we want to create, and we go tell everyone, and it's all just poo-pooed. It's all, we get all this negative energy back at us. And so I tell people, like, when you have something exciting like that, maybe let it simmer for a while and build your strength around it, because if you've had this pattern with the people in your life that, you're sharing saboteurs, you're critiquing each other, judging each other, then are you really able to move forward? And I think that women in particular, our roles are, we did all this work to gain freedom and do all these things, and now there's like a backlash, and it's like trying to go the other way. So we're in a hugely transitional time where what we were told and what we were supposed to be and what we are right now aren't jiving. And
Yeah.
in order to get at who we really are, we have to understand that our subconscious mind is way more powerful than the conscious. And so much research is out about this, about the brain, and how the brain is so capable of being changed. And that when we access the subconscious, we can speak with it, we can talk to it, we can find those patterns, those saboteurs, those archetypes that are holding us in a pattern that no longer serves. And we can just say to it, hey, you know what? Thank you so much for protecting me, but I
Mm.
need you to sit in the back seat now. I'm driving the bus. I'm an adult now. And those subconscious parts of us, they don't have a communication system with the conscious mind. So I tell people this: imagine that 90% of your life, you're reacting and behaving from that place.
Yeah.
You're reacting and behaving from old patterns and emotions that really haven't been, kind of neutralized so they don't impact your life right now.
Hmm. How can someone get started into exploring their subconscious mind and these saboteur parts?
So part of the journey begins with self-awareness. So I tell people this: if you want to get in touch with that, first of all, do you have some mindfulness practices, right? Because we have information overload on steroids these days.
Mm.
And do you have a practice daily where all your screens are gone? Maybe it's before bed, maybe it's waking up. And as a spiritual person, I'm sure that you know this, that the time before bed and the time when you wake up, it's a liminal space.
Mhm.
It's a place where you're more open to your insight, your intuition, your inner knowing. And so that's what makes those times more powerful. For me, I love to do it when I wake up. Don't go start doing things around that. Just wake up, get your space comfortable, and whatever your practice is, tune into yourself. And that's part of why I integrate this into my work, because you don't want to be dependent on a spiritual guide, on a coach. You want to learn those tools maybe from that person because you're interested. But unless you do this inner work ongoing, you're going to go back and those saboteurs are going to get reactivated over and over again. So there's no quick fix or easy answer unless you are willing to say, I have to take responsibility for
Mm.
my mental health, for my spiritual health. And by clearing your mind, and whether that's through listening to amazing healing sounds like the amazing healing music that we have
Oh,
now, it's
and there's
just
there's
off
so
the
much
charts.
out there.
It used to be like you go to a sound bath here and there, or a gong bath or whatever, and that was so cool. But now it's like there's apps aplenty. I mean, there's all these amazing, healing spiritual musicians on YouTube and everywhere, so that we don't have to search. And
Mm,
if you just want to hear some beautiful healing sounds and quiet your mind that way, there's no judgment about everyone should curate what works for them. I know when I started, I was back in the TM days when I
yeah.
got that little skinny book, The Transcendental Meditation, and that's how I started. But I've tried mantra, I did Kundalini yoga, and all of those things gave me something. They gave me another tool to where now I mostly just want to hear an amazing like rhythm or beat and just allow myself to go deep within. And that's when the real insight comes. And so I look to that in my morning because then I like to spend my mornings creating, writing, writing scripts, connecting with my people. And it is a different kind of energy than like, I want to say like a motivated, to-do list,
Yeah.
because you feel so excited by the insight that you received that the work seems easier. It seems to flow. So it is that work to me that is when you see people who make a huge shift in their life, but they keep going. They don't like run back or, they don't default back to the old ways, which is often what happens with conscious, right? We can do vision boards, we can make action plans, but life tends to default us back to those patterns. So
Mhm.
this is the way, is to start your mindfulness. If it's 5 minutes to start, 10 minutes, I think 15 minutes for me is the sweet spot. And then I follow it with some journaling just to grab those ideas, just to
Yeah.
grab, oh, I had this idea for another article. I had this idea for a training. And so life will just start to unfold in a more powerful way if you are able to clear all the noise.
Mm,
So that's the beginning.
yeah. Clearing the noise by first, getting into a daily meditation routine. And like I said, as far as the time of day to clear the mind and get into the and work with the subconscious. My favorite time, most of the time it doesn't work. Normally it's before bed, but I I feel it's important when you wake up in the morning because that's also a perfect time to journal. If you remember
Yes.
certain elements of your dream,
Yes.
writing them down so you can remember them and they don't disappear, write them down and work on those symbols because they might
Yes.
mean something.
Yes, and I do believe there's a power to, like, if you've had a very intense day or week or experience, that at night, if you do just take a few minutes, again, it could just be listening to a soothing, like a yoga nidra, or
Mm,
or a guided meditation if you feel very anxious or whatever. Those things are very powerful to help you to just settle those things, because I've gone to bed where I had a day like that and I didn't do that. And then you're like, having wakeful dreams, having a lot of things going on. So you're not getting that full restoration that your body needs. Like sleep has become my like favorite thing. I mean,
yeah.
just like I like rate my sleep in the morning, and I don't use apps or that. I used to do all that, but now I'm just like, okay, that was great. That was great. Like, some mornings you just wake up and you feel so restored. So I feel like when I see that I'm doing practices regularly and that I'm able to decide, I need an extra one here, it pays me back exponentially in the quality of, just my ability to just see things in life that I could be triggered by and be like, oh, look at that, and have a smile instead of a, like an
Yeah.
intense reaction or an emotional reaction to life, which is so easy to do these days.
So I'm on the website here, and the Soul Alignment Collective. Talk a little bit about the healing the imposter syndrome and curating your own mindfulness practice. And while we hear,
Sure.
I've heard the imposter syndrome. Explain a little bit
Yes.
about that.
Yeah, so I actually went back and read the original book because a lot of times we take these things and we kind of apply it to our own times. That book has been out for many, many decades. And what I feel, imposter syndrome, it started sort of as a thing that people would feel in business, right? They felt like, they'd go for a job and they really didn't believe they could do it, or
Mm.
they felt like somehow they're having all this success and they really didn't understand, they believe somehow they didn't really have the talent, they somehow accidentally got the job. It was very kind of like, those were the extreme examples. But nowadays I think that it's a little bit different in my, just the way I interpret it with this work that I do, because working mostly with women, I find that we have taken on so many roles out of expectation, particularly women over 40. We have a different generation that raised us, and it was like, you have to do this, you have to do this by a certain age, you have to do this. And so we're now living out, like looking back at our lives and saying, wow, why did I do that? That wasn't really something I wanted to do. And so we feel almost like imposters in our lives because
Mm.
we have maybe adapted some people pleasing in our
Mhm.
relationships. Sometimes it's just in one area of life, like in your personal relationship, but it could be in your business relationship. And so you haven't moved forward because you've been the supporter.
Yeah.
You've been the one that props people up. And that happened to me in a career where I was interviewing at a very high level, but I found that they realized they could get all that work out of me without giving me the title, and I think a lot of women run into that. So I think that we can feel like imposters in our lives because we're like, maybe I'm just not supposed to go down this path. And it took me a couple of years of interviewing and not getting, like doing well and not even getting it, and having people actually take my ideas from the interview and then implement them with a different person. And I
Mm.
was like, Dee, there's a message here. It's not that you're not good enough, because of course that's what we think. We think I probably just don't have it, or I didn't do great in the interview. None of that was the case. The case was that there was something else waiting for me. And I was kind of these archetypes, these saboteurs were, potentially going to block me from gaining those things. If I had kept going like that, I probably would have not have believed in myself. So this imposter syndrome, whether it is, in work or business or relationship, it can really show us there is an authentic self trying to come out. And I think that, I've had so many women clients who are like, they're so miserable in their job. And they're like, I used to enjoy this and now I don't. Like, what's wrong with me? And it's like, it's not you. There's something in your soul that
Mm.
is calling you to look into it, to
Yeah.
see maybe you're meant to do something else. And I had this one client when I first started doing the subconscious healing, and she came to a few sessions, and a few months later she reached out and she said, I just wanted to let you know I left that sales job. It was so hard to leave it, but I believe this really helped me because now what I envisioned as I started dealing with these saboteurs is I wanted to work for a nonprofit and use the same skills, but in a different thing. And she got the job in a nonprofit as soon as she was able to reduce the intensity of those emotions, of
Yeah.
those fears. Really, mostly imposter syndrome comes from a variety of fears, right? A fear of change. Will I be successful? Am I good enough? All of those things. And so when we make that space by just communicating with easily, quickly, without all the stories being talked about, we can then see there is something else waiting for me. And yes, it's scary to do it, but as soon as we allow it, I've heard people tell me that not only did their jobs change, but like body pain they were having just
Yeah.
went away. They forgot that they had it because they were actually holding themselves back so hard that the body, I'm sure will follow the mind and say, okay,
Hmm.
you're not listening to me on you're feeling all sad and anxious. I'm going to give you a pain in the neck and let's see if you
Yeah.
can connect the dots there. And
Yeah.
literally that stuff will disappear. And they're just like, they come back and tell me, and I feel like this is what I'm supposed to do. So that's how I started Rock Your Blocks. But then I this year just launched, I actually just finished my first round of the Soul Alignment Collective. And, and also just help people, like I said, develop their inner work practice and feel less, reactive to life, feel like they can act out of a place of authenticity and just slowing themselves down. Crises are going to happen, things are going to come at them, but they don't feel as triggered, as reactive as they did before this work. So
Yeah.
it's a pleasure to
Yeah.
do this work.
So the Soul Alignment Collective that you're offering on your website, before we get into
Yes.
that, tell people how they can find you and some of the services that they can expect by going to your website.
Yeah, so from my website, you'll find a lot in there about this small group coaching. It's exclusive. I'm only running it twice a year. And so I'll be going into the second round of that in May. And then also at the bottom of the website there, you can join my newsletter to find out all the different ways that I create. So I write articles for Medium. I create YouTube videos, which are guided meditations and sound healing. And then I also do audios for Insight Timer. Some of them are on both. And so I like to provide, being a former teacher, I like to provide a lot of different ways because some people like to read, some like to listen. And so there you can access all of that in there and, find out more about what these tools are, so I'll be also launching a community that people can come and learn this without, making commitments so they can actually try it for themselves. And that has really worked before. That's how I've, really been able to get so many people in. And so there are some VIP spots for individual coaching, but I'm really moving towards the group because the power of the group, especially when you have that safe space and it's just women and sometimes you come in and you don't feel like talking about it and you'll listen to someone else and you're like, oh my gosh, she just said, I've had somebody say, I feel like that you just said what my future self is going to be saying in a couple of months.
Yeah.
And so we have these we jump time because we're able to gain momentum from somebody else's clarity, from somebody else's insight or intuition. And so I feel like it is really powerful to be in a group. And for those who haven't tried it, it's a wonderful experience because you bond with people for, sometimes a long time and have friendships out of it as well. So that's what you can find if you head to the website, and all of the links to all of that will be there.
And saying that too is when you have people that, like you just mentioned, it's amazing, and people are not recognizing it's how much of a collective we are. We have a collective consciousness going on. So what you might be going through, somebody else is going through in a different way, a different journey, and being able to share that in a group it's amazing. It's a healing experience, and just talking about it and discussing it, and then kind of experiencing it all together, because we are all experiencing life together simultaneously, and I wouldn't say alike, but we are similarly experiencing life together, but in different ways.
Absolutely. And so the power of that, I feel like, is, to me, it's reached a height, and we're in a time where the power of collaboration, whether it's as a creator or as a person who's seeking healing, it can really exponentially change you. And I experienced that as a young person doing a group therapy. I think I went 3 times, but it was so powerful. It was like 12 individual sessions in one, because I was very young. I wasn't as outgoing as I am now. And I learned so much from the women there that by the second week, I shared how much that impacted me. And by the third week, I was like, that was like years in 3 sessions. So this Soul Alignment Collective, it really just came to me, even the name, that we are a collective. And that, and that's why I've really trimmed down my individual time as well, because I feel like it's so much more powerful when you hear it from other people, as a one-on-one coach. And especially doing subconscious healing, there isn't a lot of conscious talk. There's a little bit of it, but if you go too far into the conscious, you lose the grip on getting in touch with your subconscious. So we have to be careful with those sessions. And that's why I like doing it as a group because we're also all practicing a breath that calms our nervous system. We're learning all of these tools and getting ourselves into a state where we can all together be feeling each other's energy and going forward from that place. So, and I like to tell people this, like when you feel like you are being triggered or something is really causing a big emotional response within you,
Mhm.
that the really important thing, and this is what most people don't do, right, is that instead of blaming or feeling something towards the thing or person that gave you that reaction, can you ask yourself, first of all, what is the emotion that I'm feeling?
Mm.
Many times it's anger, but what is anger really? There's something underneath that. So I give them like a 3-step process. What's the emotion? Can I take responsibility that there's something within me that I haven't dealt with that is tied with that emotion? There's some
Yeah.
anger that I have from something in my past. And then can I commit to doing some work in this area? Because chances are, if I do that, I can reduce my anger reactions in the future
Yeah.
towards other beings on the planet that we have to, somehow learn how to coexist. So I try to
Yeah.
say that triggering is really a sign that, again, there's some inner work needed and there's something more that you're supposed to be doing, but there's a lot of emotion that is standing in the way,
Yeah.
unresolved. Yeah.
When it comes to emotion or things that we feel when we're in a situation, being conscientious and recognizing what our emotion is, and
Yes.
also recognizing what are your thoughts on where this emotion is, because sometimes we may not. It's not only the emotion, but we're actually feeling it in a particular portion of the body.
Yes, and I'm so glad you brought that up because many times I will do some chakra work, based on the yogic traditions that I've studied over the years, because a lot of women in my groups will, during the session, as they discover maybe that they've been people pleasing or they feel a sense of imposter syndrome, they will feel like constriction in their throat. They will feel tickle sensation, all different types of sensations. And it's often that they realize they have held their voice back. They've muted themselves from really stating their own needs. And actually, really, people pleasing is a behavior. It's not people are calling people pleasers. It's a behavior we develop because we haven't felt strong enough to have our own voice, to take
Ah,
responsibility. But listen, if I don't say what I need in a relationship, I can't blame the other person for not expecting me to have needs. So, they'll have this aha about people pleasing behavior, and then they'll go back and just like expect everyone to suddenly respect that. And it's like, wait, but you need to actually talk to them and explain that you've realized you've held back. You realize you need time every day, let's say, for your practices, and that maybe you're going to get up earlier and go sit in the sunroom and do your meditation. But like, you can't expect people to suddenly know because you had a moment. You've got to speak your truth. And so it does take time to get people to respect that. And should we expect them all to be happy about that? Probably not. Probably not. If you've been like this for years, you've got to have some compassion that, first of all, for yourself, that you're not going to be perfect at it. But also, it doesn't mean confrontation. It just means saying, I've done some work and I think that I've been needing this time and I'm going to do it like this. And, I want it to fit in with our life, but I want you to understand that. And so, really, it's about not taking that responsibility. So they'll get the sensation in their throat and then we work to clear it. But it does require that ongoing work and
yeah.
that also, different style of communication, which it may not work for their partner. It may not work for their job. They may have to switch what they're doing. So it is a transit. And that's why, to me, having a container and it's a 3-month course, you can go back and there's some integration weeks where you go and just practice the stuff and come back and say, this is how it went, because
Mm,
you're going to need some support to shift all of that in your life. So
yeah. Do you have any breakthrough stories or one breakthrough story you'd like to share?
Sure. So I shared the one about the career, but I did have a client who had tried so many things, and she worked with me for, I want to say, 6 or 7 months. But she had kind of an extreme case of in her childhood, she was abused, and she had no trust for anyone. And so struggled throughout many decades trying different forms of healing, not all traditional either. And she we happened to meet, and she liked the energy. She came to some of my sessions, and so decided to, take on being that one-on-one VIP client. And so we worked together week in and week out for all this time. And she was one to feel it in her body. She
Yeah.
would have reactions in her body where I felt like she was going to that place with that younger part many, many times. So I would say it was probably the most spiritual mind body client that I ever had. But the beauty of it is that she was worn out after the session because she literally was traveling back to that time. She
Yeah.
was seeing sometimes the terror and sometimes just the abuse. But then she was able to, just reduce the intensity of those memories. And now she's not doing any of these sessions. I mean, she does her work on herself, but she
Yeah.
doesn't have the need to have that coaching support anymore. She feels like she's peeled away all the intensity of it. And now she's able to, she's started her own business. She is going out to social events and dancing, which she couldn't create the space to do because she just didn't feel safe enough. And so I felt like many of the sessions with her were with her very young parts, like under age 3.
Mm.
And those parts don't always respond to just like normal sentences. Sometimes it takes just sitting with them. And for her, it was a lot of sitting with it, feeling it move through her body, and just letting it know that she's safe now. And so to me, I'm so proud of her showing up week after week, knowing she had no idea where she was going to go in that, but she knew she wanted to find her way through it. And now she's found, in her 60s, a physical body wellness, movement in her body, that there were parts of her body where she had no sensation. All of these things came back online, little by little, came back under her adult parts, no longer feeling like she would get hijacked by these younger parts of her. So, and the parts theory comes from like a family systems therapy. So, this method has some psychology and psychological tenets to it. But the idea is we can't operate in alignment if we have 5 different parts or 10 different parts of us trying to get their will.
Yeah.
It's going to feel like so fragmented. So, when I worked with her, it was probably some of the most challenging work because you're going into territory, and I'm sure you know this, right? Sometimes you go into territory you haven't been.
Mhm.
But when you see the person come out the other side and continue to show up, and to now know that their life is different and they're able to envision all of these things that they now enjoy without that shadow coming back. So if you have tried everything, and this is part of what, if your listeners will go to my website, if you've tried so many things, because so many of my clients they've tried, EMDR, a lot of things where, again, we're unearthing, but in a more just talk about it kind of way, and years of therapy. And even people who have, phobias and
Mhm.
strong fears, compulsive habits, have been able to just neutralize where that started from by identifying the emotion, letting it be, just feeling it. A lot of times people think, oh, you're just going to get rid of your memories and your past. No, that's always a part of this physical body you're inhabiting.
Yeah.
But we are, we're spiritual beings inhabiting a body. And so, how do we put that all together? There's a way to do it where we don't have to be so fragmented. Yet we can keep those parts of us, but we can wrap a blanket around them and tell them it's all right. I'm in charge now. You
Mhm.
can, chill out. So,
Yeah. Yeah. So before we close the show, what would you like to give? That's a lot of info. We've covered a lot,
a lot. I
but I'm
know.
gonna give you the opportunity before we close the show as offering a takeaway for our audience today.
Yeah, so I would encourage you if you feel at all like, there's just a lot of darkness and a lot of negativity constantly coming to your mind, know that that resistance is there to tell you that if you could get me just to calm down, there's so much wanting to come up in you. And I love to use this quote by Rumi that says, "The hole is where the light comes in." The parts of us that are hurting, the parts of us that persist and show up all the time, they're showing up because not because they want us to drown in it, but because they want us to see that if you just look at this for a little bit, the light will start to come through. So I encourage you, whatever difficulty you're going through, there is a light and there is healing waiting for you behind it.
Absolutely. Yes. Well put.
Thank you.
Gotta let the light shine into the darkness, and yeah.
And move forward, and get the
Yeah.
support that you need. It's okay. A lot of us, we don't want to ask for help, but it's okay to ask for help. And in that process, develop bonds, develop friendships, develop collaborative, people that you might do something with in the future. So
Yeah. Yeah. And these are opportunities too to like what you do is now is this mainly remote sessions or also in person?
That's so funny that you said that. I went remote with the pandemic and everything, but I have recently been meeting some other light workers in my
Nice.
area who are like, "Oh, would you like to do a session together?" I met a forest healer, and it's
Yeah.
beautiful forests up here if you've never been to Northern California. I mean,
Oh,
we've got the oldest trees around, and so she goes into the forest with people and helps them connect with nature, and she said, "Oh, I would love to do a combination, so I definitely will be doing more. I would love to do retreats even with this type of work, but right now it is virtual for the time being with this
yeah.
course to reach more people. But
Cool. Cool. Denise, namaste, blessings, my friend. Thank you.
thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate it. And I definitely will be following your network. I looked and you have some amazing guests and people on. So let's continue to share and co-create.
Yes, that's what it is. It's co-creating and
That's best.
giving people as many opportunities out there, especially for those people who are afraid to admit they need help. These are
Yes.
outlets for them to come out and go, "Hey, I got a question. I don't feel right. There's something going on in my life and I need an explanation."
Yeah. Yeah, and sometimes hearing other people talk about it, it can really be the way. So I can't tell you, I appreciate it so much. And I love that, our voices are now out there, and
Mhm.
you never know who might hear you at just that right time. And so that's a blessing of it. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Denise, thank you again. Blessings, my friend. And again, for those who want to go check her website out, it is rockyourblocks.com. And yeah, go check it out.
Awesome.
Awesome. Denise,
Namaste.
namaste, my friend. Thank you, everybody, for watching Conscious Radio Network's The Seance. And until next time, we will see you next week.
Thank you.